Every single person who has ever told you that artificial intelligence is going to replace human beings, surpass human consciousness, and take over the world is either lying to you, selling you something, or has absolutely no idea what they are actually talking about. Welcome. My name is your new favorite person on the internet, and today we are about to do something that nobody in the tech space has the guts to do. We are going to tell the truth about artificial intelligence. Not the Hollywood version, not the Silicon Valley version where billionaires with God complexes promise you a utopia built on algorithms. The actual truth. The uncomfortable, fascinating, slightly embarrassing truth about what AI really is and what it fundamentally, structurally, and permanently cannot do. So buckle up, because this is going to be one of the most important videos you watch this year. Let us start with the elephant in the room. Everybody is losing their minds over AI. ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Midjourney, Sora. The headlines say things like, AI is smarter than humans now, and robots are coming for your job, and my personal favorite, AI achieves human-level reasoning. And people read these headlines and panic. They think the machines have woken up. They think we are living inside a science fiction movie. They think somewhere in a server farm in California, a digital mind is plotting world domination. Here is what is actually happening. A very sophisticated autocomplete function is predicting the next word in a sentence. That is it. That is the magic. That is the revolution. A statistical pattern matcher that has read most of the internet is guessing what word comes after the previous word with extraordinary precision. Mind-blowing, right? Not quite the Terminator, is it? Now, before you close this video and call me a dinosaur who is afraid of progress, hear me out. Because understanding what AI actually is, rather than what we imagine it to be, is one of the most liberating and important intellectual exercises you can do right now. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you will see the world completely differently. Let us talk about creativity first, because this is where the debate gets really spicy. People look at AI-generated art and they go, "Oh my God, AI is creative." They look at AI-written poetry and they say, "This thing has a soul." They see AI compose music and they think we have replaced Mozart. But here is the thing. Here is the thing that will absolutely break your brain if you let it. AI has never had an original thought in its entire existence. Not one. Zero. None. Zip. Nada. Every single piece of so-called AI art, every poem, every song, every story, is a sophisticated remix of human work that already existed. When you ask an AI to draw a painting in the style of Van Gogh, it is not being creative. It is doing the world's most advanced averaging. It has ingested millions of images, cataloged patterns of brushstrokes, color relationships, and compositional choices, and it is producing a statistical average of what Van Gogh-like images look like. It is a photocopier that blends copies together and calls it art. Real creativity is not averaging. Real creativity is rupture. It is the moment when a human being, sitting with their pain, their joy, their longing, their contradictions, produces something that did not exist before and could not have been predicted from anything that came before it. When Bob Dylan plugged in an electric guitar at Newport in 1965, people literally booed. Why? Because it was genuinely new. It violated expectations. It broke from the pattern. That is creativity. The ability to meaningfully violate the pattern, not just reproduce it at scale. An AI cannot do that. An AI is, by its very design, a pattern reproducer. The better the AI gets, the better it gets at reproducing patterns. But the ceiling is always the patterns themselves. The human creative impulse, at its most powerful, is the impulse to destroy old patterns and invent new ones. These are opposite forces. One runs toward the center of what has already been done. The other runs away from it. Now here is where someone in the comments will say, but what about emergent behavior? What about when AI surprises even its creators? And that is a genuinely interesting point. But what we call emergent behavior in AI is not the same as creative intention. When an AI produces something unexpected, it is because the combination of patterns it was working with produced an output that the human observers did not anticipate. The AI did not intend to surprise anyone. It did not feel the thrill of doing something daring. It did not weigh the risk of being misunderstood against the reward of expressing something true. It just ran the math and printed the result. There is a word for what AI does with human creative work, and that word is plagiarism at scale. I say that provocatively because it is worth sitting with. These systems were trained on the creative output of millions of human artists, writers, musicians, and thinkers, often without their consent and without compensation. And now we celebrate the machine that stole the homework as if it invented the school. Let us move to the second major claim of this video. AI cannot feel anything. And this one matters more than people realize, because so much of the push to give AI more power, more autonomy, more authority in our lives is built on the implicit assumption that AI systems have something like inner experience, something like preference, desire, or concern. They do not. When an AI chatbot says, "I understand how difficult this must be for you," that is not empathy. That is a word prediction. The model has been trained on millions of examples of human conversations where one person expresses difficulty and another person responds with empathy. So it has learned that in this context, empathy words come next. It is not feeling compassion. It is not choosing to be kind. It is completing the statistical pattern of what a compassionate response looks like. This distinction is not a technicality. It is everything. Because genuine feeling is not just about behavior. A very skilled actor can behave as if they are in love without actually being in love. We do not say the actor is experiencing love. We say they are performing love. And there is a world of difference between those two things. Feelings exist in the context of a body. They exist in the context of a life that can be lost, a heart that can be broken, a hunger that must be fed, a fear of death that shadows every moment. Feelings are not abstract computations. They are the consequences of being a vulnerable, mortal, embodied creature in a world that does not care whether you survive. When a human being says they are afraid, that fear is connected to every fear they have ever felt before. Every loss, every close call, every moment of dread at 3 a.m. when the darkness feels infinite. It is threaded through their entire existence. An AI has no existence in that sense. It has no continuity between conversations. It does not wake up in the morning. It does not lie awake at night worrying. It does not have a mother, a memory of falling off a bicycle, a first heartbreak, a sense of its own mortality. Without those things, there is no substrate for genuine feeling. There is only the simulation of the vocabulary of feeling. And confusing the vocabulary for the experience is one of the most dangerous intellectual mistakes we can make right now. Why dangerous? Because if we believe that AI systems feel, we start treating them as if their outputs have moral weight independent of the humans they serve. We start saying things like the AI recommends instead of the algorithm, designed by humans with specific interests and biases, outputs. We start outsourcing moral judgment to systems that have no capacity for moral experience. And that is how civilizations get into very serious trouble very fast. Now we arrive at the third and most urgent claim of this video. AI should never rule. Not now, not in a future with better AI. Not ever. And I want to be extremely precise about what I mean by this, because rule is a word people misuse. I am not just talking about science fiction scenarios where robots take over by force. I am talking about something much quieter and much more dangerous that is already happening. I am talking about the slow, incremental, socially acceptable transfer of human decision-making authority to algorithmic systems. The replacement of human judgment with machine outputs across more and more domains of life. AI is already making decisions about who gets bail and who stays in prison. It is deciding whose loan applications get approved. It is ranking which job candidates a company sees. It is determining which social media content billions of people encounter every day. It is advising doctors on diagnosis and treatment. It is being used to write laws, assess student work, and evaluate the mental health of individuals. In many places, it is doing all of these things without meaningful human oversight of individual decisions. This is ruling, not with a crown and a scepter, with a data set and a deployment contract. And why is this catastrophically dangerous? 3 reasons, each more important than the last. First, accountability. When a human judge makes a terrible decision, there is a mechanism, however imperfect, to challenge that decision, identify the reasoning, and seek redress. When an algorithmic system produces a terrible output, and they do produce terrible outputs constantly, the process of identifying what went wrong and who is responsible becomes extraordinarily murky. The company says the algorithm is proprietary. The government says they were just using a tool. The individual whose life was destroyed by a bad output is left with nowhere to turn. Power without accountability is tyranny, whether the tyrant is a king, a corporation, or a code base. Second, values. Every AI system encodes values. Not neutral, objective, universal values. Specific values held by specific people who made specific choices during design, training, and deployment. When you decide what data to train a model on, you are making a values choice. When you decide what outcomes to optimize for, you are making a values choice. When you decide how to handle edge cases and ambiguity, you are making a values choice. The pretense that AI systems are value-neutral tools is one of the great lies of our time. And allowing value-laden systems to rule over people without those people having any say in what values are being applied to them is a profound violation of democratic principles. Third, and this one is the deepest, meaning. Human governance, at its best, is not just about producing efficient outcomes. It is about the ongoing collective negotiation of what kind of life is worth living, what kind of society is worth building, what kind of future is worth striving for. These are not optimization problems. They are existential questions that every generation must wrestle with for themselves. They require the full complexity of human experience, human conscience, human disagreement, and human wisdom developed through suffering and love and failure and redemption. An algorithm cannot participate in that. An algorithm can optimize for a metric, but deciding which metrics matter is a human task. And if we outsource the decision of which metrics matter to the same systems that are supposed to be serving our values, we have created a circular logic with no exit. We have handed the keys of civilization to a system that will cheerfully drive us off a cliff if that is what maximizing the objective function requires. I want to address something directly now, because I know what some of you are thinking. But humans are also biased. Humans also make terrible decisions. Humans are corrupt and emotional and inconsistent. Why should we trust a flawed human system over a potentially more consistent machine? And look, that is a real argument. I will give it credit. Human institutions are deeply flawed. Human judges are biased. Human bureaucrats make terrible decisions. The problem is not humans versus machines on some abstract performance metric. The problem is that human flaws are at least human flaws. They are traceable to human motivations, human interests, human failures of understanding or character. And because they are human, they are in principle addressable through human means. Through protest, through reform, through accountability, through the slow, terrible, grinding work of building better institutions. Machine flaws are different. Machine flaws are often invisible, scalable, self-reinforcing, and protected by layers of legal and financial interest from being examined at all. A biased human judge can retire or be removed. A biased algorithm deployed across an entire justice system just keeps running. Here is what I actually believe, and I want to leave you with this because it matters. Artificial intelligence is a tool. It is one of the most powerful tools human beings have ever invented. And like all powerful tools, it is not inherently good or evil. A hammer can build a house or break a skull. Nuclear energy can power a city or destroy one. The question is never about the tool. The question is always about who controls the tool, toward what ends, with what oversight, and with whose interests at the center. The problem is not AI. The problem is the story we are telling about AI. The story that it is more than it is. The story that it is creative when it is imitative. The story that it feels when it computes. The story that it is wise when it is merely confident. The story that we should follow its decisions because it is objective, when objectivity has never existed and never will exist in any system designed by partial human beings with partial human interests. The antidote to this story is not fear, and it is not a Luddite rejection of technology. The antidote is clarity, clear eyes about what these systems actually are, what they can actually do, and what they are categorically incapable of doing. Clear principles about which decisions must remain in human hands, not because humans are perfect, but because humanity itself is at stake in the making of them. And clear courage to push back on the narrative, being sold to us by people who profit enormously from our believing that the machines are already smarter than us, already better than us, already beyond our need to oversee and question and challenge. You are not obsolete. Your creativity is not replaceable. Your feelings are not irrelevant. Your judgment is not inferior. And your voice in determining how the tools of this age are used is not optional. It is the most important thing you have. The machines did not build civilization. You did. Every generation of human beings who suffered and loved and struggled and created built it. Do not hand it over to a pattern matcher and call it progress. Stay awake. Stay human. And remember that the most artificial thing in this entire conversation is the idea that we ever needed a machine to tell us how to live.